Welcome to online class. Today we will be talking about the shape of things to come, boundaries and their impact on political cohesiveness. So, to start off, why do we care about the shape of nations? Well, there are several reasons why we care. Because depending on how a nation is shaped, or a political state is shaped, it can have more or less control over the areas around it. There are four major categorizations of a nation's shape. The first is perforated, or elongated, my bad. So an elongated state is a state whose territory is decidedly long and narrow in that its length is at least 6 times greater than its average width. So, as you can see in this picture, Japan is a good example of an elongated country. What are some other examples? Some other examples of an elongated country could be Norway or Sweden. Both have very long north to south territory, and they're very narrow east to west. Another example could be Chile. Chile is a very long north-south country, expanding nearly the entire length of the South American continent, but it only has a very narrow width. And some of the problems that can be associated with an elongated country is that the capital can be very far away from the more outward regions of the country. So an example would be in Norway, the capital is towards the bottom of the country, so the people at the top have very limited contact with the bottom, and really aren't as influenced by the capital as the people closer to it. So an elongated country kind of makes it more difficult for the political system to be unified. The second category that is often used is perforated. A perforated state is a state whose territory completely surrounds that of another state. So an example of that is South Africa. South Africa is a good example of a perforated state because it completely surrounds Lesotho. Lesotho is this little orange country over here, and it's completely surrounded by the green South Africa. Now, with a perforated state, it can be rather interesting because of the interesting phenomenon of having a state completely surrounded by another state. So, this can affect political cohesiveness because there is just this one kind of whole that is an entire different political entity. And it can kind of lead to a larger tendency for things to break up. Another example could be in the United States. There are areas that are designated as Indian territories that are sovereign nations within the country of the United States. So it's a little different from this situation, but it is still considered perforated environment. So the next one is fragmented. A fragmented state is a state that is separated by a human or physical barrier. And Indonesia is a good example of a fragmented state because it is long. It is just divided, both by human and physical barriers. As you can see on the left side over here, or that's the right side, my bad. It is divided here along in this island between two countries. Oops. And the green part represents Indonesia, and this other part is another country. So that is a human barrier that divides this from other places. And then the natural barrier is the ocean, the sea, that separates all of these islands from one another. And while it is a example of a fragmented country, it's also an elongated state because of its long, narrow nature here. So, the final one is a compact state. And a compact state is a state that possesses a roughly circular, oval, or rectangular territory in which the distance from the geometric center to any point on the boundary exhibits little variance. So, taking this example here, Poland, its circular rectangular shape makes it a good example of a compact state. So, looking at where my mouse is now, if you go anywhere from the middle out, it's about equal distance to any point, which makes it a compact state. And this really helps political cohesiveness because especially if the capital is located in the near center, the capital has roughly the same amount of control over all areas of the capital, of the country. So in a compact state, it tends to be a much more cohesive environment. Not always, but it is more often associated with being more stable, cohesive environments. So I guess that wasn't the final one, but there's the protruded state as well. As you can see, a protruded state is a state that exhibits a narrow, elongated land extension leading away from the main body of the territory. So as you can see here, Thailand's long southern peninsula makes it a great example of a protruded state. This long southern peninsula extends far out of this main body. And this can be a problem because with the political cohesiveness, because it is much separated from everything else. It's just this part tends to get a lot of attention, but then this is so extended out that it's almost oftentimes a different culture or political entity of its own. So now that we have gone over these different kinds of states, it's your turn. On your right is an example of an unlabeled map of Europe. You don't need to know the names of these countries, you just need to know that their boundaries are there. So you're going to hit pause to do the following activity. You need to find and label 3 examples of elongated states. Find and label 3 examples of compact states. Find and label 3 examples of protruded states. And you also need to identify if there are any examples of perforated states, and why or why not. And these should all be on the handout that was given to you in class today, along with the map, so just color them different colors. And as an added bonus, also find a few examples of fragmented states. So hit pause now and hit play again when you have completed this activity. Now that you have found the examples of these different states, let's look at a few examples here of what I found. So the first, check your work, the elongated states. These orange countries here are the most obvious examples of elongated states. There are also several other states that could be classified as elongated, but these are the most obvious ones. This one over here, England, is fairly elongated. It's not as, dramatic as some of the other ones, but it is still a fairly long country that is stretched out. The other ones, or a few other ones, are the countries over here, Sweden, Norway and Finland. I'm not sure which order they're in. But they're also all very long states that have a lot of distance from top to bottom, and most of their capitals are located more towards the bottom, or the southern end. So getting the political cohesiveness all the way up to these northernmost territories can be difficult. And there is often a very different culture at the top than there is at the bottom. Another example down here is Italy, where it is also a very elongated state with a lot of distance from top to bottom. Now, Italy has its capital more towards the middle, but it still is a long distance to go north and to go south from there. It's not a very compact territory. A few others that you may have classified as elongated, maybe Portugal over here. It's longer and less compact than some of the other ones, but it is not as dramatic. Another one that you might have classified could be this one. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but it is a rather elongated state, but a better classification may be, well, we'll wait and see. So the next one is compact states, and these are marked in green. And the compact states are the roughly circular or rectangular. And these are only some of the most obvious examples. So Iceland over here, Germany and Poland are both very compact states. France is fairly compact. And a lot of these other little ones are also fairly compact states. But these were the most obvious ones. So now for the protruded states, these are marked in the purplish gray. These ones have little outcroppings. Over here we've got one of these states with these two outcroppings here. And then over here we've got Greece. It has long outcroppings, along with this C-shaped Croatia, maybe, state. It also has a protruded nature to it. An argument could also be made that Italy is a protruded state. You could also argue that many of these states have little protrusions, like this one up here protrudes into the smaller country over here. Or, I know I saw a couple other ones. But, over here, we've got a protrusion off of Finland into more of the Norwegian and Swedish territory. So a lot of countries have an example of a protrusion in them. Finally, here's a summary. Not all states fall under just one of these categories. Some states have characteristics of several of these categories, and others seem to have their own category altogether. However, the shape of a country can still have a profound impact on the political cohesiveness of a country. So for homework, on the back of the sheet that you did the previous exercise on, I want you to pick a country and describe how the shape of it could impact the political cohesiveness of the country, and examples of what categories you think it falls under, and then kind of why you think it is. So bring a map and label the different things that you see, such as where the capital is, what constitutes it being a compact, elongated, perforated, or fragmented state, and then bring that to class tomorrow. So, thank you and good luck.